welcome to the stage. Begin.
Thanks a lot for not butchering my last name. Very much appreciated. I'd like to invite you guys for joining me on the road to more resilience. I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but I think at the end of the talk, you'll all agree that this is a must. I know some of the people in the audience have seen this talk before, so I turned this into a Mage Titans special edition just for you guys. Woo! Woo! Okay, tough audience, no worries. I've been a while in this industry. I've been a programmer for a lot longer. This is my first device I started programming with. I probably are some of you who know what this is, like who used something like this before. Okay, cool. I think I didn't use this to code Magento, but maybe something similar. And that and a few more things led eventually me to found my own company, bitExpert, and working on and with that company for the last 20 years, which has been a crazy ride, let's put it like that. What are we doing? Well, bluntly, I like to call it we turn the problems of our customers into their competitive advantage. And this is like enough marketing speak from me for the rest of this session. Hi, I'm Stephan. If you really want to try to pronounce my last name, it's Hochdörfer. But you don't have to. Kind of, yeah. Thank you, Jesse. I think the cool kids these days call me a content creator, because I speak a lot of conferences and meetups. I organize a bunch of meetups myself. I blog a lot, and I like to share my knowledge and my passion. And one of my passions, and probably my first or second love, is PHP. Any PHP lovers in the audience? Woo, okay. I was hoping for more, but that's okay. That's okay. I started coding with PHP in the last century, again, which gives probably away how old I am. I used a lot of programming languages, but somehow I always ended up coming back to PHP for, I don't know what reason, but it is how it is. Because PHP is awesome, right? It's a dynamically typed language, which is great most times. We have pretty cool features like variables, or pointers if you have a proper programming language. We have magic methods that do stuff. We have fibers, all these cool things. And at least in my opinion, we do have the best package manager in the world, Composer, right? So that's what always dragged me back to PHP. And this talk technically is not about dynamic type hints. Obviously, it's about static type hints. Now, there are some people who might think that it's kind of useless to do that with PHP because of like our background is being completely dynamically typed. And I mean, it worked for us for like, I don't know, 15, 17 years, right? So why change? And yeah, I mean, why, right? I mean, why should we use type hints? Everything was working before, sort of. So let's have a look at this little code example here. Function add, $A, $B. Like any good code, we don't have doc block because, I mean, nobody cares about doc blocks anyways and reads that. And I guess that code is enough to give away what it does, right? So who has an idea what this is doing? Maybe. Maybe. Probably someone has seen my slides before. Right, so since we are in an e-commerce context, add obviously means adding a product to a cart, right? Because what would you else add in an e-commerce context? I don't know what the product and the cart is in that case, but I mean, PHP is like magic, right? It will figure that stuff out internally and everything's fine. So Another cool thing about PHP is that actually you have access to the whole source code, right? So we can actually have a look what it does if you find the right file. And this is what's doing. Oh, okay. Well, probably not adding a product to a cart, probably creating the sum of A and B. But still, I have no clue what A and B is and what the return value is, right? So let's do some tests, and now it gets a little bit interactive. Do you think this works? Add 1 plus 2. Yeah, we'll start easy. Come on, guys. Yeah, obviously. Sure. What about this? Adding two arrays. Does that work? Yeah, I see. Exactly. Now let's get a bit tougher. Adding strings. Yeah, kind of. So unexpected. Thank you, Niels. Unexpected is probably the right expression here. Exactly. So if you use a proper version of PHP, and I mean like PHP 8 and onwards, you do get a decent, proper fatal error. Awesome. If you use PHP 7.1 to 7.4, you would get a warning triggered that at least will also tell you that something isn't going well. If you use PHP 7.0 and earlier, nothing happens. Well, the code does not break, but nothing happens. Probably also not the best behavior to expect. Right, and why am I telling you this? Well, I think, and I'm happily quoting myself, the larger your code base is, the more you want type safety, because there is a lot of moving parts in your code base, and you can't really keep everything inside and see all the side effects that could potentially happen. And it gets worse. I mean, Magento and all the other big systems out there, they use a lot of dependencies in Composer, right? So you don't know exactly what is going on everywhere, and you can't control everything on your own, and you shouldn't probably. And this is where static code analysis and static type hinting comes into place. If you need proof, I have an example for you. This happened 2 years ago, roughly. The Laminas guys released a patch version of the escaper component, and afterwards someone tried to install Magento or update Magento, and it broke the product pages and the catalog category view pages. There was this weird error happening, type error. Raw URL encode expects parameter 1 to be a string, but a bool was given. Like, what the heck did the Laminas people do? I mean, this was just like a patch release. Like, how could they completely change everything? That's weird. Now, let's have a look at the code. This was the function before the patch release. The doc block says, escape a string for an URI or parameter context. It says add param string should be of type string. What they did actually is this. So they introduced a string type hint and declared strict types. Now, in their theory, this code and this logic was in place for like 10 years. And everybody should have read the doc block comment and figuring out that only strings should be passed. But apparently someone didn't, or didn't care, right? And this is what happened. Now, they quickly ran it back and fixed it, or well, rolled it back and solved things. But this proves again, static type hinting is so important if you rely on so many third-party code that you should not live without it. Right, so what is static code analysis? Well, according to Wikipedia, it analyzes a computer software, computer code, without actually executing it. Which is good, right? Because if you executed it, it's running in production, and you don't want to have like live persons testing your code, unless you're crazy. Or in other words, static code analysis helps you to promote runtime errors to build time errors. Fail as early as you can. Don't fail in production, right? Always make sure for an e-commerce site that the product detail pages work, that search works, that the checkout works, right? You don't want to figure out that checkout is broken because you get tons of errors, and then you have to fix it really quickly. And how do these tools work? Well, first of all, they infer types by figuring out the surrounding contexts. Like in this case, we are calling the add function with two numerics. And that means if I add, or if I create the sum of two numerics, the result will also be a numeric, or an integer in this specific case. So the $result variable will hold an integer value. And in the code that follows afterwards, you know that $result is an integer, and we can take that assumption into place for all the other checks around it. We can help these tools by adding type-specifying language constructs, like saying if is int, is bool, is string, whatever, then you know what type of variable it is. Same for instance of, right? I'm checking if the object is an instance of countable, so I know all the public methods of countable I can call. There might be some other public methods, but I'm not aware of those. Same for exceptions. I catch specifically the runtime exceptions, so I know exactly what I'm dealing with. And obviously, type hints everywhere. Parameters, return types. The more type hints you have, the easier it is for the static code analysis tools to figure out what is going on. And if you do it properly, this will work. If you pass something invalid, the PHP interpreter will tell you that as well, saying, hey, wait a minute, you passed something wrong. Again, this fails early. This does not fail when you try to create the sum of both values, but on the method call, like one line early in this case. And if you want to go really crazy, again, declare strict types everywhere. If you do that and call that method again in your IDE with the wrong types, and you probably can't see it, you get these red curly lines under the parameters just to indicate that probably you did something wrong, and you can fix it. Again, fail early or as early as you can. Cool. So there are a bunch of tools out there in the PHP space that support static code analysis. There's Fan from the Etsy guys, there's Psalm from the Vimeo guys, and there is phpstan. And this is the tool that I want to use in the following examples just to show you how it works. Mostly just for one reason, because as of Magento 2.4, it's part of your Magento installation. Why is that? Well, blame me. And if you don't want to blame me, blame Jisse. If you want to hear the full story, just come to me afterwards, because we don't have time. Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you later. So again, if you have Magento 2.4, anyone using an older version than 2.4? One. Okay, fair enough. That is your problem then. Right. So if you're using 2.4, as I said, it's part of the distribution. Just call it. It's also documented in the dev docs. And what kind of errors can phpstan detect? So if you're not aware, this could be interesting for you. First of all, something obvious like, hey, there is a property that is not used at all, so you can delete that. This one's also pretty interesting. It can figure out, hey, this property is set, let's say in the constructor, but no one ever reads from it. It's just written. So maybe there is a typo in it, or maybe you just don't need that dependency anymore. You can probably remove that as well. Well, the obvious, like there's an undefined method you call, or there's an undefined constant you're calling. This is what we've seen before. Hey, wait a minute, load expects an int, but you're passing a string, so maybe there is something wrong going on over here. If you set the error level of phpstan to 6 and upwards, it will also tell you something like this. Say you have a variable that I'm not really sure what type it is, so we call that mixed, and you try to cast that to an int. So maybe you're doing something wrong, because I mean this variable could hold an object, for example, and if you cast an object to an int, it's probably not what you expect to do. And it can also help you evaluate like if statements, saying, okay, you have this statement here or these checks, and the left side of the AND is always true. Maybe there's also something freaky going on. I can check that as well. And one of my favorites, and I know this is, some people have mixed feelings about it, I guess. It can complain, or it will complain, if you have an array definition like this, saying, okay, this method just accepts an array. Give me more information, please. Like if you set the phpstan error level to 6 or higher, it will annoy you with this and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not exactly sure what this array really is. Help me to describe it a bit more, which is always a good thing, I guess. So you can do something like this, saying, okay, this array has a string as a key and another array then as the value. Again, a string as a key and something else as a value. You could even go crazier and also define the array keys in detail, which will then also be used by phpstan to figure out later on in the code if you access just the properties or the keys that are defined or not. And for me personally, that helped me a lot. Like when I got started with Magento and I had to implement such a method, it always annoyed me to start xdebug, inspect the array, or try to log it or dump it in a file, and that never worked because of the circular references and stuff, and that was also like weird for me. So that's pretty nice, I guess. Now the thing is, this only works with Magento projects if you want to test Magento modules or older Magento versions. I've got you covered with this one here. That's an extension for phpstan that you can install, and then you get all this functionality plus a bit more for your pleasure. As of this morning, we hit the 750K downloads, which is awesome and awkward at the same time. Because I have to be really careful to not break stuff, which occasionally happens. Let's put it that way. Good. So what does phpstan Magento, the extension, offer? I see the slides are a little bit older than I expected it to be. Anyways, so first of all, you upgrade phpstan to the latest version possible, because we try to be always compatible with the latest version. Earlier versions of Magento ship with a very old version of phpstan, so you should try to update, and usually it shouldn't really break. If you really want to support the latest versions, use this extension, and then you install the extension installer, which does some magic in the background, so you don't have to configure it yourself, and then install the extension, and magically it works. So for Magento distribution, it's just a drop-in replacement, so you can use it out of the box. Great. So features. Well, as I said, it supports Magento 2.3 and 2.4. With older versions of this extension, you could even go back to like Magento 2.1 or something. So if you're really crazy. We always try to support the recent phpstan version. Some of our users pressure me a lot to be very proactive when a new version comes out. So I'll try to do that as soon as I can. Usually things don't break. We had some minor issue last year in phpstan where Andre made some bigger changes internally, and that blew everything up on our side. So. But usually everything's fine. As I said, it works for standalone modules on Magento projects. That's up to you for decide. We have built an own class generator for factory and proxy classes. We have support for test framework autoloader, test framework object manager, type hints, extension attributes, which is really cool if you want to use that in your Magento module. Object manager type hints, obviously, magic method calls. We have some classes copied from the core Magento framework and modified some doc blocks and type hints and stuff to make phpstan happy. And last but not least, we have rules. And what are these rules? Well, these are basically tests against your code, and then you can figure out if those rules pass or not, and if your code complies. There are a bunch of rules implemented so far. We have support for service contracts. So do not use abstract model load, abstract model save, abstract model delete. Use the resource model instead. Use the resource model injected as its own dependency. Don't query the model for that. Same for collections. And 2 weeks ago, I added a rule from the XDN folks. Do not use set template in block classes. If you ask me why, just ask Yisr, because he knows that better than I do. How does that work? Well, as I said, you have your code. Like in this case, you have a model and you call load on it, and then it will error out that you shouldn't do that, obviously. If you don't like that, or if it's false positive, because obviously we can't detect if the resource models actually exist, you can disable that globally, or just like the place that errored. Same for the resource models. If you call get resource on a model, it will say, hey, this is deprecated. Please inject the resource model directly. Again, you can disable that globally if you want to. And same for get collection. If you call that, it will say, hey, wait a minute. That's not the way you should do it these days. And again, you can disable that globally. And finally, the XDN rule, if you have like a template class and you call set template anywhere, it will tell you that you shouldn't do that. And again, you can disable that globally if you find this too annoying. And these are just very few rules. I mean, I could implement even more, and that's where I need your feedback, obviously. If you want to go more like general programmable rules, there are a lot of packages providing custom rules for all sorts of ideas that are out there, let's put it that way. So these are just a bunch that I know. There are a lot more. These have between, like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, up to 100 different rules for all sorts of use cases, and then you can freely decide which one of those rules makes sense for you, and then just enable specific ones and ignore the rest. Definitely worth a look, I guess. And if you really want to get started, and this is not a tip from me, this is from my good friend James, start at level 0, fix the issues, start at level 1, fix the issues, move to level 2, fix the issues, and so on and so forth. If you directly jump to level 7 or level 8 or 9, this will totally annoy you and like overwhelm you, and that doesn't get you far. And the thing is, if you go slowly one by one, you will definitely find issues and problems, and you will find code to fix, even though you thought your code is perfect. And I can speak out of my own experience. It's really nice. There are a bunch of other extensions that are interesting to look at. There is the PHP language extension for phpstan, which is developed by Dave Littleman, which tries to add new PHP language features via phpstan to the language. Like in this case, what he did, he introduced an attribute called package. And if you add that to a class, only classes in the same namespace are allowed to access that class. So basically like private classes, as you probably know that from Java. We don't have that yet in the PHP core. And this helps you a little bit like to play with this feature, figure out, does it make sense? Do we like it or not? And if you add that to your CI pipeline, and before your deployment, you can make sure that this code never reaches production, even though technically you could call this mailer class from anywhere, obviously. And the other one is find unused public elements. Discussable if that makes sense or not, but if you feel like this is important or interesting to you, so this will go all your code and find like public methods, public properties, and stuff like that are not used within your code base, and then report that to you unless you mark those with an add API doc block comment. Great. And last not least, once again, declare strip types. This is the way. Thank you very much.